ESPN has demoted Doris Burke in a surprise move. ABC ESPN has demoted Hall of Famer Doris Burke from its NBA Finals team and promoted longtime network commentator Tim Legler to its number one team. Sources briefed on the decision told The Athletic on Thursday. Legler will pair with longtime lead play-by-play man Mike Breen and Richard Jefferson for the NBA Finals. Richard Jefferson, Tim Legler, and Mike Breen. Doris Burke gets promoted. The Peter Principle gets promoted to her level of incompetence and gets run out. Your thoughts?
Wow. That last part, Jason, it wasn't that long ago. You were a fan of Doris Burke.
I was.
I mean, yeah, was. I mean, I can't believe that came out of your mouth. I mean, I knew you were down on her, and look, we've been tough on her. We like, but we're like Joe Cortez, the boxing referee. We're firm, but we're fair. This could be good for her. I think it's certainly good for the audience. She played a specific role. She was generally much more well-liked in that role. If they give her back to that role, less can be more for Doris Burke.
Everybody, including me, love Doris Burke as basically the third or second best. She get the second, third best games on ESPN's NBA coverage. Everybody loved her there. We knew we weren't getting Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson, but as a change of pace on lower tier NBA games, everybody loved her. They, ESPN being filled up on DEI, promoted her to the number one job where expectations elevate, and she got exposed and it sucked, and it's like, hey man, this isn't as good as Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. And that is I don't know if this reorganization is going to work for Doris Burke, and I'm not sure it's going to work for Rich Jefferson and Tim Legler. They may have just put Tim Legler in a losing position because Legler and Richard Jefferson, that's not going to be as good as Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson either. It doesn't sound like a number one team to me. Tim Legler was a spot up shooter in the NBA, and Richard Jefferson was probably on a good team, the fourth best player. And maybe at some point he was the third best player on some teams. Richard Jefferson was a good player, but just didn't have the gravitas, I don't think, that Jackson and Van Gundy had. Your reaction to that?
Well, okay, that last part, was Mark Jackson ever really the best player or the second best player on any team that he played on? And he was a very good pro.
He led the league in assists, I would bet, a couple years.
All right, but did you ever think of him in the same class of Isaiah, John Stockton?
No.
I believe that the strength.
Hold for 1 second, though. Hold for 1 second. Hold for 1 second. Let's say, as a player, you're right about Mark Jackson, but he got added gravitas from being a head coach of the Golden State Warriors and being a part of the birth of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
Right, and I believe that the strength of that trio, their version of Run DMC, you know what? They had unbelievable chemistry. And you could have that with two Hall of Famers or two guys that were just solid players or role players, and Mike Breen was the great traffic cop to that team, right? I think in television or in radio, you cannot manufacture chemistry. You either have it or you don't. And the thing that I did enjoy about those guys is the way that Van Gundy and Jackson, they'd contradict each other. They'd get heated, but you always kind of knew they were winking and nodding like, hey, we're having a good time here. They had their own little catchphrases, and it worked. To this day, Jason, I don't understand why ABC ever tried to fix something that was not broken.
I think, and this is I'm speculation. I don't know how confident I am in this speculation, but I think they wanted to get rid of Mark Jackson because of his Christian values, and they couldn't get rid of Jackson without getting rid of Van Gundy because then they would appear racist.
The white, black.
And that's what I think happened.
Yeah, and by the way, this is interesting. So the new team at ABC for the #1 games, male, male, male. Jason, they're not checking all the boxes here.
They'll have sideline reporters
Well, but
galore.
that's always female, though. That's generally female, though. Come on.
Well, I mean, that's what they're gonna do. All
Okay.
right, we'll move on from Doris Burke and move to the New York Knicks, where Mark Jackson started his career. Don Staley, I think we have a clip of her talking about wanting to be the head coach of the New York Knicks. She was under some brief consideration. I think had a conversation with them. Let's hear from Don Staley.
Go ahead.
So would you ever seriously take an NBA job?
Would I seriously like I interviewed for the Knicks. I did. It was the same interview that everybody else that was in their candidate pool. Same thing. Went in. I mean, it was like hours, but in the interview, I thought I did pretty well. I was well prepared for the interview, right? If the Knicks would have offered me the job, I would have had to do it. Okay. Not just for me, it's for women, for just to break open that I would have to, and it's the New York Knicks. And I'm from Philly, but it's the freaking New York Knicks. And I did say that in the interview. Like, I actually said it. Y'all don't have to censor it
You
out.
can
but
say
I
it. We got creative control of it. We can bleep you out.
But I did. I was like, it's freaking New York Knicks. Like, yes. Would I take any NBA job? No. But I will say this. The NBA has to be ready for a female head coach. You can't just interview somebody and say we're gonna hire her. Because here's the thing, because I think I probably lost the job by asking this question, or I had a series of questions that I asked them. One was for who they were looking for why I was in the candidate pool, right? If I was so attractive, I said, has the New York Knicks organization in its history ever had what you're looking for? They wanted a team. They wanted the inclusiveness with management and the coaches, and everyone wanted to feel like a team, a closely knit franchise.
Steve, she would have had to do it for women.
Yeah.
Why isn't elevating women's basketball to the high? Why isn't that doing it for women? And what qualifications does she have for coaching men? Farcical to me, the whole thing.
And by the way, it's the New York Knicks, right? Wasn't their last world championship in 1973?
Yes, thank you.
It's the Knicks. Yeah, so much winning tradition there, right? Great leadership with my only wish is if it would have came true, Jason, my only wish is that the team would have had Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason and Patrick Ewing on it. That would have been great. But what's this going to be, the real life Eddie?